Well, since I've been having audio issues the past week or so, this Friday's video will be a simple one, basically just going back over the APHE changes, but looking over the feedback that I got from the video, and then also we'll be looking at the War Thunder forums just to see what other people are saying about this thing as well. So the first question that I've been asked is why I've been voting no on this whole system, even though it's just a test. Like Gaijin is just going to introduce like a test server, something to where we can test out this thing and see how it kind of goes. And to be quite honest with you, I think this is Gaijin's fault whenever it comes to asking a question like this, because for me at least, I'm an automatic no. And even though it's just a test, I don't like features that are going to be added within this new change to where I would even vote yes on it even if it came after a test. But what Gaijin should have did is that they should have did a test server, or they should have did something where they actually show off what this actually is and then let people vote on it after people get their hands on it. This initial system is just going to push off so many players because for one, you're nerfing something that many people do like, and then also for me at least, the main reason that I voted no on it, I'm not even really concerned about the nerf whenever it comes to like side-shotting APHE stuff, but the fact that weak spots will be nerfed, as in like cupolas, little bitty weak spots that you can shoot on tanks, will just completely be gone away. I'm not in favor of that. I feel like gameplay is going to be always over realism, and I do not want to play against tanks which are just going to be impenetrable from my cannon. But yeah, overall, I think it's Gaijin's fault. They should have did a test and then asked people a yes or no question instead of just asking, do you want us to do a test server? Because for me at least, whenever it comes to this, I'm not in favor of it at all, just because of that simple fact of the weak spot thing. And I don't really want to vote in something that I know will change something that I just completely am against. So for me at least, it's always going to be automatic no for this sort of thing. And then also for me, I also think around the battle ratings of like 1.0 to 6.7 is relatively balanced. You do have some problem vehicles like the KV-1E and KV-1E, but also you have the T-18 Boarhound, which is a problem vehicle, and then also for a like negative example is the M26 Pershing. The M26 Pershing is 6.7, which it should never be. It should still be 6.3, but you know, it is just one of those things. But overall, that area of the game of 1.0 to 6.7 is pretty balanced. Like I wouldn't really say that there's really many problem vehicles within that VR range, but if you introduce something like this where pretty much a whole subsystem of these vehicles have changed, which is APHE, you're probably going to have like 1 to 2 years again where you just have to balance out this area because so much has changed about every single one of these vehicles. And then also you're still going to have the problem of just people won't play certain vehicles because they suck. And guess what? After that, they don't go down in battle rating. And so whenever you get to that point in a tech tree where you need to spade that type of vehicle, it's going to be very poor to play it just because it just sucked and you're the only one who's played it in like 3 months. That's why I don't particularly want to see this come in as well, because you're going to have unkillable heavies. You're going to have unkillable tanks, which right now can be killed because they have weak spot. And then you're going to introduce a new meta to the game, which will be, here's exactly how it's going to go. You're going to have the unkillable heavy meta, which means that a bunch of the heavy tanks will do very well. After that, those heavy tanks will get moved up in battle rating. Let's just use the example of the T-95, which is a tank destroyer, I understand it, but the T-95 right now, its only weakness from the front from an APHE machine is the cupolas. You remove that ability from the T-95 to where it cannot get shot in the cupola and die, guess what? Rarely anything can pin it whenever it comes to that APHE rank. Guess what? It's also going to go back up in battle rating to where instead of it seeing a Tiger 2, it's going to see Leopard. It's going to see M48s with Heat FS. It's going to see a bunch of tanks that it should not be facing just because nothing below it could kill it. You realize that's exactly what's going to happen with all this. You're going to have small caliber guns just like the Jumbo go down in battle rating to then where nothing can kill it, but it can just pin everything. But yeah, that's my main concern for this whole battle rating range, is just that it's in a good spot right now. It's been a good spot for probably like 2 to 3 years at this point, of just where everything feels okay to play. There's not a particular bad vehicle, and if there was a bad vehicle, it got moved down in battle rating. And then also you got to realize that these battle ratings, which are to lower tiers, more people are likely to play them just because they're easier to get. And I don't really want to see a time in War Thunder to where just some of these vehicles just don't get pushed down in battle rating or pushed up in battle rating just because of the new APHE change affected pretty much this whole area. It's fine as it is right now. Like if you can, name one area of like 1.0 to 6.7 that is struggling right now whenever it comes to War Thunder. Yes, there's going to be bad vehicles, but at the same time, every nation I don't feel like is in a bad place whenever it comes to lower tiers of War Thunder. So the next feedback that actually I really agree with is that they're changing APHE no matter what. We're not getting to vote on these changes, which I think is kind of just sad, because even if these changes don't come in for the fragmentation of the APHE, the actual APHE buffs will still be coming, which to me at least is a little bit crazy. So what they're doing is that they're increasing the capabilities of APHE by adding the spalling from a regular AP round, and then also they're adding the spalling post-pin pass-through, which means that you can shoot, like for example, Tiger from front and hit the engine with an APHE round, which to me at least is a little bit crazy, and they don't want us to vote on this issue at all, and they feel like that is just something that they just want to put into the game. Gaijin, this is just saying it right now, that sometimes whenever you have an idea that you think is going to be very good for the game, sometimes it's not. There's a reason of why APHE right now is one of the most preferred metas within the game. It's because it just nukes everything. The only thing that is good for AP rounds in the vehicles which don't have APHE is that they're able to get more penetration throughout the tank instead of just within the front of the tank or within the side of the tank. This is a huge thing that you're also giving to just APHE for the sole reason of that you found one document that showed the warhead of a 75mm M61 which went through a tank and the warhead stayed intact. Now also you got to remember this, Gaijin, that you're giving out one example within this. There's different rounds whenever it comes to War Thunder of HE fillers. You have a very huge HE fillers and also you have very low HE fillers whenever it comes to APHE, and you're basing every HE or APHE within the game off of an M61 shot. I 100% don't believe that APHE should get the same benefits as a AP shell. It should definitely be something that Gaijin thinks about, because overall this is a huge negative change just for the game in general, because they said that we're not getting to vote on this at all and it's just coming to the game. It's not a good change, it's a terrible change, and it should be one that does not even come in just in general. Like, think about this one, Gaijin, because this one is just giving AP abilities to a round which is already super good and already performing very, very well. Why would you add more to it to make it an even better round instead of just giving it rounds around it different abilities, which makes you want to actually bring those into the game? The next set of feedback that I was given is that this new meta is going to increase people actually mobility killing tanks and getting around them and getting to the side of them. While yes, it technically would, I think most people would just go for the gun first, because for one, if they shoot a APHE into a tank, it doesn't kill the gunner, and guess what, that tank can just shoot directly back at them, right? So it's one of those things that's going to be a hit or miss thing. You're going to have people who track and barrel torch everything, but the example that I would give, and the one that was given to me, is the T95, once again, because it's going to be the hot button topic vehicle, because it's one that would just be incredibly good whenever it comes to this. But the T95, the way that you would have to kill it if you do not have the cupola weak spot on the top is you would have to shoot the gun out, and then you would shoot the tracks, and you would get to the side of it, and there's this little lip that you can shoot with an APHE round, which actually will pin the tank. The problem with this is that yes, you can do this, but War Thunder is a game of teammates. How are you supposed to get around them in like a heavy tank and get to the side of them? And then also, you just have issues of crew skills. Yes, I said it. The crew skills is the main issue of this. And the reason behind that is because, well, for one, you're introducing a realistic mechanic, which is nerfed APHE, to a unrealistic mechanic, which is crew skills, which people can buy. People can actually spend real money on this and get better crews, which means they can repair faster, they can reload faster, and they can even do wonderful things like getting an ace crew, which means that they'll do it even faster than that. So you're telling me that my main goal would to be to just track a T95 and then shoot the gun out and then try to get to the side of them in a heavy tank before they will be able to repair. And it's a complete gamble if they will actually have a good crew or not. That's my other issue with this whole argument, is that yes, it would create a meta where you actually mobility kill things and get to the side of them, but then also you got to realize that you have a very unrealistic mechanic, which is crew skills, which would then also make it to where this mechanic just sucks. And I know this from like a huge experience. My KV-1E, for example, is ace crewed. This vehicle I can almost repair before some people can reload. If they shoot out my tracker, they shoot out my barrel, I can almost repair this tank with an ace crew. Like, that crew is basically just maxed out before someone at the lower tiers can even get another shell into their cannon. Like, especially if they have to rush into me or they have to get around me because they just don't know where to pin a KV-1E. There have been times where I just repair and they're like, huh, what? How did this happen? And it's completely because I have an ace crew. How is that fun? Like, it's just not. And you're telling me the only reliable thing that I can do to you is track and barrel torch you and try to get around you. Like, at least you have 4 tracks on the T95, so I can just take out like 1 track at a time and reset your counter. That would be the new meta whenever it comes to this thing. But then what happens if you accidentally repair your gun breach or your gun and then you're able to just shoot me? That doesn't sound fun at all. And that's another reason why I'm just totally against this new system completely of removing weak spots whenever it comes to different tanks. Another thing to note about this whole thing is that none of the AP rounds within War Thunder right now are model corrected at all. Want to know why? Around 5 years ago at this point, War Thunder changed from using the historical documents and use their formulas for calculated penetration. If you don't know how Gaijin uses these formulas, just look up this dev blog and I'll also put it in the description. But they use DeMar formula and they also use Lanzodermat. DeMar is used for regular AP rounds, including APCR and HVAP, and then they use Lanzodermat for AP FSDS round. The reason they did this is because, one, stuff is classified, so we don't really know much whenever it comes to top tier of their penetration wise, and if there was a reason of why we should know them, well, guess what? They're most likely propaganda numbers, which means they could be completely incorrect. So it's a really good system to introduce a constant between all the nations whenever it comes to penetration. But they also did the same thing for well-known numbers whenever it comes to the World War II and Cold War vehicles whenever it comes to War Thunder. Those are also introduced under a formula chart, and I know many of you probably don't know about this because it was about 5 years ago at this point whenever they added this, and some of you weren't even playing the game by then. But 5 years ago, before this change intro came into the game, all of the rounds whenever it came to War Thunder were completely different pin-wise. If you want to see some examples, here's M62 on the 76mm cannon, and then also look at the AP round. The AP round itself has more penetration than the APHE round on the old system, and with this new system that we have currently, APHE rounds are just completely dominant whenever it comes to pretty much every vehicle within the game. There's not a reason to use AP at all. And then also, if you want a little funny thing, here's APCR. APCR actually used to be very strong whenever it came to its pin numbers, especially for like a 76. The 76 APCR could easily just pin the front of a Tiger II when it comes to the turret. But the main reason that I really wanted to bring this up is because before this new formula change came into the game, there was reasons to run other rounds. For example, in the Shermans, you had your APHE, which would do more damage, but you also had your regular AP, which had more pin. I think Gaijin really needs to create another system that was very similar to the one that we used to have, of where there was just other reasons to bring rounds within the game. APCR had the most pin, but had the worst angle pin, but it means that you were able to go through the turret of a Tiger II, for example. The same thing with the AP round. You may have gotten a side shot on a Tiger 1, for example, with your M62 shot, got a one shot with it, but then also you could be facing it from the front, and you may need a little bit more of that regular pin to get through the front of the Tiger, for example, because the APHE round used to be very poor whenever it comes to pin. I believe it was like in the 21 somewhere in there. So it was really poor whenever it came to that, but now in War Thunder, the APHE round for M62, it's sitting at a whopping 149mm of pin at 0 degrees and at 10 meters. So it's insanely just valuable to just run the APHE round. There's no reason to run the AP at all, and Gaijin really needs to promote other rounds being used in the game by actually giving them a use, because even if they add this new system of where they just want to remove weak spots and also nerf APHE, what is the reason for me to just run regular AP if my tank has it? What's the reason to run APCR if my tank has it? Because the all-round good round is still going to do better than both of those rounds would do even in a nerf state. So why would I need to use them? And I feel like that's what Gaijin needs to work on, is giving reasons to use those other rounds with the War Thunder, and giving reasons that they should be actually valuable instead of just hanger sitters at this point, because really no one uses them, except for if you get like the 90mm and you got an APCR round, which means that you can pen the Tiger IIs, for example. That's really the only reason you would ever run APCR, for example. But yeah, that's really all that I want to talk about today, because I feel like it's very important. This is like a turning point. Just like 5 years ago, whenever the AP changes came into the game where they used formulas, this is basically the exact same way that's happening right now. We're having something that will massively change how War Thunder plays. And for me, at least, I'm fine as is. I feel like the game is in a really good spot. I feel like there's not really a reason to change the lower tiers of War Thunder, even though there's a huge gripe about this being realistic. One of the keywords within War Thunder play is realism. There's also a ton of things within War Thunder which aren't realistic, like crew skills. You have things like respawning. You have things like taking just out cast, spawning in the air. Like, realism is one of those things that people crutch on, but at the same time, gameplay should always come over it. And I believe gameplay right now within the lower tiers is pretty good. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys in the next War Thunder video.